Okay, so we're going to look at this policy, and I know there's some questions around commissions and taxations with the life insurance policy, and it gets a little bit confusing because the way a life insurance policy is structured. But since we're talking about the cash, what I want to do is just let's turn off the death benefit portion. Let's just look at the cash for just a minute. And we can clearly see, like in the first year, there's $44,000 going in, but we only end up with 28,925. So we have a loss. But if we look at the internal rate of return over this life insurance policy over 30 years, we see that it says it's 4.04. Now, internal rate of return is a pretty confusing item. There's not a lot of people that really understand exactly how it works because they're used to thinking about rates of return um, annually and what's going on. And an internal rate of return is annual, but it is over time. And so I'm trying to break that down and try to help understand how that works. And I think the easiest way is to first look at, all right, if we had the choice of putting money into the life insurance policy or putting it in another account, what would happen if we put it in another account and we earned 4.04% every single year? And we know a life insurance policy doesn't work that way, but down at the bottom, what we see is this would grow to $1,940,085. Again, that's the estimated illustration from the insurance company. So let's look at another account, putting the same dollars and earning 4.04% every single year. Well, if we earned 4.04 on the same cash flows going into the life insurance policy every single year, we would end up with the same 1,940,085. Now, clearly in this example, on this alternate account, it is earning 4.04% every year. The life insurance policy, on the other hand, is earning the equivalent of 4.04% every year. What in the world do I mean by that? Well, let's look at the life insurance policy again, and let's look at the actual annual rates of return. So here what we see is in the life insurance policy, we actually have a negative 34.38% the first year, a negative 17.7 the next, a negative 10.9 the next, a negative 3.75 the next. Well, with these, how in the world do we get to a place where we're earning 4.04% every year or the equivalent of it? Well, it's because as we move down through this, we can see that we're actually earning from the 11th year down more than 4.04% every single year, so that at the end of this time frame, end of this 30 years, we earn the equivalent of 4.04% every year. Not an average, but an actual, because that's where we end up with the 1,940,000, the same as earning 4.04% every year. Okay, now, when we're looking at this return, the difference with the life insurance policies, internal rate of return, and what people hear about returns in other types of investments and savings vehicles is usually with the other types of assets, that return that we hear about is a gross return before fees, commissions, taxes, any of those things. With the life insurance policy, it's actually after all those are considered. So this is a net return on the life insurance policy. This is after all commissions are paid. They're not coming out on top of what's happened here. And the taxes don't have to be paid on an annual basis. If we look at the alternate account, we would have to take those things into consideration. So even if we could earn 4.04% on this account, and let's just assume initially that this is a regular bank account, that maybe we could do this on CDs. We can get somewhere close to that, I think, right now. Who knows where that'll be in the future, but for right now, let's say we could earn this 4.04 each year. Well, if we did that, we would have to pay taxes on it. And based on a 32% marginal tax bracket, every dollar after that would have to be taxed at 32%. What we see is we'd have this string of payments that would have to come out of this account to keep this account going. And so at the end of this time frame, we'd only end up with $1,505,000 rather than the $1,940,000 we had in the life insurance policy. And that's because the 4.04 was gross and the taxes had to be paid out of the earnings. Now, in order to have this keep up, we can see up there at the top, it tells us that we would have to earn 5.94% every year to be equivalent to the 4.04 that we're seeing in the life insurance policy. So let's test that and see if it's true. Earning 5.94% every single year, paying the taxes out of the account, at the end of the time frame, we see we would end up with the same $1,940,085. So while that's not the internal rate of return on the life insurance policy, the life insurance policy earned the equivalent of 5.94 when compared to another asset that is taxable at 32% marginal bracket. Now, where would we earn 5.94? I don't think we can do that at the bank rate. So now then we're looking at having to go to another place, out into the securities industry, maybe for maybe some stocks, some bonds, some other pieces. And if we did that, we're going to take on an additional cost, and that is going to be management fees. And at a minimum, we would expect 0.5% per year. Well, when we look at the management fees of a total of $358,000 cumulatively over that time frame, it actually took away a little over $400,000 from our asset because they had to come out of the account along the way, and it shows us now at the top that we'd have to earn 7.56% every single year to be able to pay the taxes and the commissions on this account and still end up in the same place as the life insurance policy. So again, let's see if that's true. And so we're going to take this account, assume we could earn 7.56% every single year, pay the taxes out of the account, pay the 1.5% management fees, and voila, we end up at the end with the same $1,940,085. So while the 4.04 that we see in a life insurance policy is net of fees and commissions, when we're looking at other assets in a comparison, it's typically gross. And so we have to earn quite a bit more than that in order to keep up with the life insurance policy. Now, let's look at the chart, Kim, if you would. The second one up there. And go ahead and turn up that one. So here we see two lines representing the growth in these two options. The gold line is the alternate account. In other words, if we did not put money into the life insurance policy over the time frame, and we can see that it would be ahead of the life insurance policy along the way by a bit, and because the life insurance policy is the blue line, but at the 30-year mark, they actually become the same amount. Now, let's take that out another 20 years. So let's go out a total of 50 years and see what it looks like. At that point, it crosses over, and over this time frame, we can see that we would end up with, in the life insurance policy, a bit more. And actually, we could see what that was. Click on the comparison, Kim. So here in this comparison, we can see our alternate account end of year value of a little less than $5 million, $4,987,000, and the life insurance policy at $5.7 million. So the life insurance policy actually has $766,000 more dollars in it at that point in time, even though on the front end it was a little bit behind. If one of the things that happens with this, and we're going to incorporate that, part of what pulls the return down on the life insurance policy is the fact that it does have a death benefit with it. There's a cost for having that incorporated. Now, this line is all net of those costs, but I think we need to look at what that benefit is to see what we're getting as well as this cash that's in here. So if we look at the legacy, what we see now is this purple line. So if death were to occur at any point in time, this is the coverage that would be in place for the heirs over that time frame. And let's take this out to a more reasonable life expectancy. So let's go out 80 years. And so that would be age 89. And at that point in time, this is the difference that we would see. If we could if we didn't put money in the life insurance policy and we could earn 7.56% per year, every single year with no down years, no 2008, 2009, no fluctuations in what the market did, and we stayed at that 7.5% the whole time frame, we would end up with, after taxes and commissions, about $17 million. If we put money in the life insurance policy based on the estimates of what they're currently earning, then what we would see is a future asset value of about $21.5 million. So $4 million more. Again, all net of commissions and fees. And if death were to occur at that point in time, the heirs would get $24.8 million or $7 million more than what we would have if we had it in the market or some other place earning 7.56. So the idea of commissions is very different when we're talking about the life insurance policy because it's already included in the net results versus when we look at commissions elsewhere. The other thing that gets confusing about it is we hear about the high commissions in life insurance policy because life insurance policy commissions are paid by the insurance company. They don't actually come directly out of what's contributed in the life insurance policy, but it's paid by the insurance company and only based on the premiums in the first year. And then maybe a little bit of a trailer after that. Whereas what happens with typical management fees / commissions, certainly in the securities industry, is that 1.5 sounds like a lot less than 55%. The difference is the 1.5 is every year, and it's on the whole balance of what the account is. So hopefully this clears it up. If not, please reach back out. This is a difficult thing to get your head around a lot of times, the idea of IRR. A lot of people talk about it, but it's difficult to understand how it really works. And we just need to remember that what the main thing is, it's what you would have to earn equivalently elsewhere to get to the same end result. One of the things that was asked was about looking at rate of return and internal rate of return. And so let's go back and look at that on the life insurance policy and see how that differs. And so if we look at the permanent life insurance, and let's just look at the spreadsheet, and let's turn on an IRR column in here. We see the annual rate of return column, so that's the equivalent of what it's actually earning each year. But let's look how that compares to the internal rate of return. And this shows how different it is over time. A lot of people look at an internal rate of return calculation and they say, well, we lost 34% in the first year, which we can see is the same as our annual rate of return in that year. Why? Because the annual rate of return is always just for 1 year. It's what happened 1 year. So the first year, they're going to be the same. The next year, the internal rate of return is actually less than what the annual rate of return is. Why? Because on an internal rate of return calculation, it is always carrying the good or the bad of all the previous years to give an actual rate of return over the whole time frame. So if we only held this policy for, in this case, 3 years, then we would have lost the equivalent of 16.72% each year. Once we get down here to the 10th year, we can see, oh, now we've got a positive rate of return of 0.19. Now from an annual increase each year, we actually got to a positive rate of return in year 5, where we can see that 0.83. But because all those negative years in the front are actually impacting the return on the life insurance, on the internal rate of return calculation, it takes it here until the 10th year and we see 0.19. But understand, when we hit that 10th year, it doesn't mean at that point we lost 34, we lost 23, we lost 16 on down the line, we finally earned 0.19. What it means is when we hit that 0.19, at that point we earn the equivalent of 0.19 every year, all 10 years up to that point. And if we go to the next year, we earn the equivalent of 0.81 every year prior to that, and on down the line. And so that's why when we get down here to the end and we see that 4.04% at the 30-year mark that we were used to, that's the equivalent of earning 4.04 every single year prior to that. And so that's where it gets difficult to really understand how an IRR works. But the beauty of IRR is it is really a levelizer that shows you the actual difference between one decision and another in the most accurate possible way.